And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And unfortunately, my co-host Matt Dudek, who you can usually find on Twitter at Horizon Matt, will not be joining us today. And I was really hoping to have him on because this was going to be the last time he was going to be able to be on for a while. Because unfortunately Matt will be out the entire month of March, but that's okay. We have quite a slate of folks coming in to join us, including next week with Jimmy Lemke. But you can still follow Matt. He's still going to be on Twitter. He's still obviously still on Twitter at Horizon Matt. You can follow the Horizon podcast, Horizon Roundtable on Twitter as well at Horizon RT. And today's kind of a interesting day because we have the ever immortal Horizon Boy joining us today.
Yeah.
And Horizon Boy, I believe you are on Twitter at Horizon Boy _HB.
That is correct. That is
All right.
me.
Outstanding. So, before we get into the discussion with you, I wanted to let everybody know a couple of programming notes. Obviously, it's been a crazy February. It's going to be even crazier in March. Obviously, we're going back to back next week because we got Jimmy Lemke coming on with the talking about the All Horizon League picks. But I'm hitting you. But we're hitting you with another second episode after that. I finally got Justin Kinner, and the co-host of the Reach the Horizon podcast, and longtime radio guy, Justin Kinner. So you definitely don't want to miss that one. And then in the coming weeks, we've obviously got March Madness coming up. Selection Sunday, it looks like we'll definitely have both Kyle Craven, who, crossing fingers, will be on the ground for us in Indianapolis, and John Parker. So you definitely don't want to miss all of those things. But back to you, Horizon Boy. Now, normally, obviously, as I'm sure you're all aware, if you've listened to the podcast in any given for any length of time, we usually have the real names of our folks who behind their Twitter handles, but there's a certain mystique about you, Horizon Boy, that I couldn't deny. So why don't you tell everybody kind of the origins of the Horizon Boy persona, and kind of what went into that, and kind of what you do now, what you're all about on Twitter now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess the idea started off. I was with a buddy at an AHL hockey game. We kind of came up with this theory of if you studied one specific conference, could you gain a competitive advantage handicapping it by being really specific and sticking to a niche? And I think this is now my fourth year doing Horizon Boy. I did 2 years. I was a private account because it was just kind of to test myself, to test my research. Then I had some friends that they were like, this Horizon Boy, it's a good time. You got to open it up and try. And I wanted to also branch out and like get sources on the ground and talk to people, because that's what I found is more important than any kind of analytical research. It's just hearing you guys and seeing your tweets of all the fans in the Horizon, and getting information that way. I guess, has that experiment worked? Probably not. I don't know. I think it's turned in more to not a social experiment, but just a fun hobby. I love interacting with
Sure.
all of the characters in the Horizon and being a character myself.
We have plenty of them, that's no doubt. As a obvious Horizon character in my own right, so yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because obviously we came across you because we came across your account, obviously, because as you mentioned, the handicapping part of it, and obviously one of the things that has kind of happened during the course of our run on the podcast is kind of
Yeah.
this explosion in sports betting. So That's not really kind of my. Obviously, that's not really kind of my thing. But I know it's I know it's extremely popular. And I know a couple of years ago, obviously the courts basically ruled on giving basically the green light to expanding it.
Right.
When I was living in Ohio, obviously Ohio has their heads up their asses, so good luck getting them to do any kind of sports books anytime soon. And if they do, they'll just screw it up. I live in Indiana now, so they've obviously got everything. I see advertisements all the time. I guess FanDuel. I guess I want to say FanDuel or Sports Kings has really ramped it up lately.
Yeah.
So but yeah, but in other areas within kind of the Horizon League, I know that it's become popular not just with the fans, but obviously with the betting public in general. So, and I'm sure that's kind of how from what it sounds like, that's kind of how you stumbled upon it.
I like to do it for entertainment. I would never. Sometimes I joke about Horizon Boys return on investments, or
Sure.
some of the other accounts, and I joke about having a big fund and striking it rich and going to Indianapolis. But really, I think it's a form of engagement more
Yeah.
than and entertainment. So I think it's a fun way to get people into games and increase engagement across, especially any mid-major. Having people interact with those tweets and seeing them, and if that would,
Sure.
in a legal way, incentivize them to bet one way or the other, then I'm happy to have them hashtag riding with HB. But mostly it's just kind of a for fun thing. And it's
Sure.
about engaging with fans, and I think it creates a discussion. I think when Vegas sets a line on your game, it's something other than winning. If you're a right state and you're going to be favored in probably 17 out of 18 Horizon League contests, it's kind of fun to have your team play against the spread.
Mm-hmm.
And as an IUPUI too, looking from
Sure.
the ground up, hey, if they can go into Northern Kentucky and at least cover, then that's worth something. So
Sure. Absolutely.
that can get you excited about your team, and not too excited, but
Well, I mean, we are talking about IUPUI here, so
right. You can make some money off your Jaguars.
that's true. That is true. So if for no other reason, IUPUI fans other than us constantly ragging on your team, at least today for at least entertainment purposes, you have at least have the other part of that going on for you.
Right.
So
But I will say I don't think that calling spreads is inherently gambling.
yeah.
So I guess
Well, and you're absolutely,
boy.
and it's funny that you mentioned that
Yeah.
because not only, again, as I mentioned, not only have you been doing this for a couple of years, now all of the mainstream sports stations are doing this as well. So
Right.
I mean, so obviously there's always been some inherent value in it. I mean,
Yeah. But it is unusual, like if you watch like an ESPN College Game Day these
Yeah.
days, it's all picking spreads. And I do think that's just a form of predictive analysis. Everyone
Sure.
loves to predict and everyone likes to be right. So
Yeah.
with Horizon Boy, it's not even that I'm putting money on the games, it's the
Mhm.
social incentive of being correct.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about, I think.
Sure,
Uh,
absolutely.
so
And
so
well,
I want to do
yeah,
well.
and I'm glad you do that too, because obviously you kind of got, and I see the way you kind of the way I see you having it set up is basically you talk about you kind of talk about talk about a pregame, and then you kind of go in and kind of recap how everything went down too. So that's pretty useful too.
Yeah, and I haven't really explained why. I don't spend too much time explaining why I make the picks or what went wrong, but I don't know. I guess I like to just start the discussion, and I really like my favorite posts are the ones that people are just replying that they disagree. People are if one game is looking terrible, I got someone saying, "Oh, what do you do?" Like terrible. I love that stuff. It's amazing, and I just like the dialogue that goes through those chats.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and I also would kind of ask kind of the thought process behind that, but nobody wants to know how the sausage is made. You just want
Yeah,
to eat
yeah.
sausage.
Exactly. And maybe the sausage.
And if they don't like the
is that
sausage, they can
creative.
complain about it later.
Yeah. No,
So,
it's there's a process I've got,
sure.
but um,
So yeah.
but mostly I enjoy being a character on the internet in the Horizon League. I like that fans of different Horizon. I like to think that at least fans of different Horizon schools know who Horizon Boy is and get excited when Horizon Boy picks their team because I think uh, one of Horizon Boy's best assets is that he's a fan of none and a fan of all. So
And that's actually it's funny. It's amazing. It's actually pretty interesting because you're actually not. You're kind of like a neutral Horizon League across the board fan.
yeah,
And you're actually not the only person. Surprisingly enough, you're not the only person like that because, as I'm sure you listened last week, we had Todd Buckingham on, who is an across the board neutral Horizon League fan,
right, right.
and it's so. And I think it's so interesting that for all of the kind of individual team fans that we have within the Horizon League, that we have a couple of kind of fans of the league in general. It kind of blows me away. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's if gambling drew me to the conference, I mean, like I just love the Horizon League now. I think it's
Yeah,
the way they do their schedule. I mean, I think there's a lot of issues with it.
yeah.
But there's a lot of things that I really like about the Horizon League, and I love the teams and I love the fan bases that come with them.
Come for the handicapping, stay for the blinding dysfunction.
Boom, that should be my tagline.
There you go. Or the inherent slap fighting between 3 and 8.
Amazing, amazing.
Speaking of which, I know this past week I'm sure you took a beating.
I
But this
started out. I was 4-0 going into Saturday, and I missed all three of them yesterday.
Yeah, so kind of the big news out of this past week is kind of the fact that you already, as of right now, if you're a Northern Kentucky or Wright State fan, as of right now, congratulations, you're already heading to Indy. Get your
Right,
tickets now. And it's funny because those are the two teams that are probably closest to Indy.
you're right.
I mean, because I think Northern Kentucky,
Well,
I think,
there's one that's
yeah,
close.
yeah,
I
um,
don't think they're going to be showing up. They're already eliminated.
yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, we still haven't got any information on that anyway. But so
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's true. We haven't. Yeah, but it's on. We're a week away. We're like a couple weeks away from the tournament.
So bizarre.
Yeah, and nobody knows what's going on with them. Like
So do you think it's
anybody.
purpose? Do you think it's a purposeful acquiescence just in case Detroit finishes ninth or 10th?
I don't think it makes a difference either way, to tell you the truth. First of all, I do think that Detroit Mercy is would probably, even if they weren't banned as they are currently now, because they haven't made a decision. And let's face it, if they haven't made a decision, it's not happening. Um, they're probably not finishing. I think they're going to probably end up finishing ninth. I think.
Right.
Um, so, and here's a scenario that I think might happen. Just because, um, and I don't know if this is something. I don't know if this is plausible. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been into some weird theories lately. Um, some of them actually turning out to be completely right. But anyway, um, but again, for those of you scoring at home, obviously we thought Detroit Mercy was the APR ban for Detroit Mercy was lifted. Turns out that is incorrect. That was first reported by Tony Paul up at the Detroit News, and then it was confirmed by Scott Venshi from the Green Bay Press Gazette. He actually talked to, and he verified this with Detroit Mercy's SID, PJ Gradowski. Good guy, got us I've talked to him a couple of times, but he confirmed that the NCAA had not made a decision on whether or not to lift the APR ban, which is freaking nuts, by the way,
Yeah.
because if you know that we've talked about the situation so many times, and the situation regarding the fact that the ban is basically predicated on two players who, by the way, are currently playing college basketball right now. And
Right.
it's so nuts. And the fact that the NCAA has basically just sat on their thumbs, essentially, is pretty astounding.
Yeah, those problems are pretty tricky. You kind of see it over. I feel like we've seen another example of that out at Pittsburgh with Stallings in the past week. Him getting slapped with violations. It's like, well, he's not coaching there anymore, and the people that he allegedly recruited incorrectly aren't there either. So
That is true.
who's really getting punished?
Yeah. But yeah, the Stallings thing is just so ridiculous because here's a guy, Kevin Stallings. He was absolutely. I mean, aren't you supposed to cheat to win?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the guy. I don't think. I think his last season. I don't think he won a single ACC game.
No, I don't think he did.
He was nth level terrible. So, and after all that, he ends up getting a 3-year show cause. So that was. I hope that was worth it, buddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the NCAA is so quirky about those types of things, up to and including the Detroit Mercy situation. So here's what I don't know if this would actually come to pass or not. I don't think it will. I think what will end up likely happening is if the NCAA does not make some sort of decision by the end of the regular season, the Horizon League will turn around and say, okay, we're only going to have 9 teams. One and two are going to get the double bye. The 3 seed is going to get a single bye. That's what I think is going to happen. So that incidentally makes that 3 seed all the much more important. But the league could also turn around and say, okay, the NCAA hasn't made a decision yet. So because they haven't made a decision yet, maybe maybe we will decide, okay, fine. We'll have Detroit Mercy play in the tournament. We'll have Detroit Mercy play in our conference tournament. And let the chips fall if they may. Thinking there's a probability that Detroit Mercy, under no circumstances on the planet, are ever going to make it past the first round.
Right.
I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but maybe. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, we'll honestly we won't find out until the end of the regular season next week, which is kind of silly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. But I'm under the running assumption that they will not. I do truly believe that they are going to.
They're not really playing like it.
Yeah, that is true as well. So that,
I think they're the best 6-22 team I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, you can be that good when you have Antoine Davis.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, they've got a bunch of talent. It's just.
Yeah, that's the amazing part of the whole dynamic with Detroit Mercy is that that they have the ability, and I've said this multiple times, they have the ability to beat anybody in this league. They just haven't.
Yeah, they go on runs that are unbelievably. They only see it from like Wright States or Northern Kentucky's, I feel like, in this league.
Yeah, and they're not the crazy thing is they're not the only team they're absolutely not the only team that in this conference, as I'm sure you've seen this, that has the ability to do that. We have seen this from literally every team in this conference at some point in time. It is so freaking weird. Where you have the talent, or in some cases, you have the coaching to be able to do it, but it's not consistent. So Detroit Mercy is absolutely in that category, and I would argue, UIC is absolutely in this category as well.
I totally agree with that.
That is, yeah, the fact that you have such talent with UIC, and they have beaten Northern Kentucky and they've beaten Wright State. I believe they beat both of them, right?
Yes.
And then struggle on Saturday against IUPUI.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what makes UIC is a tough team to cap, because you just don't know what UIC team you're going to get.
Exactly.
I'm pretty high on UIC, and actually, two of the hot takes I had this week, I feel like played out when UIC beat Northern Kentucky by 30, but I think that's a team that can win the Horizon League Conference tournament with all the experience that they have and the talent.
Well, I will say this. I will say this as well too. I think that, and we actually did, obviously we did a poll this week about. We did a poll, not this week, yeah, about whether or not, because on the strength of kind of the performance they've had in the conference, whether or not Steve McLean's going to get to keep his job. And I think because they were able to beat Wright State and Northern Kentucky, I think we see. And I've said I don't think that Steve McLean's going to get another year, but now I'm not so sure. I think he's going to get another year, which is crazy. Which is crazy because he's going to start from scratch next year. He's
right.
I mean, he's got what, four? He's got at least 4 or 5 seniors on this team, and they're all graduating.
Right.
Tarkus Ferguson is graduating. Marcus Adi is graduating. Jordan Blunt's graduating. Godwin Bowen's graduating. I mean, you're gonna what is he? He's basically gonna like build around Michael Diggins, Jamie Hale, and Braylon Bridges, I guess.
Yeah, Diggins is something else. I really like him, but that's not. They're gonna struggle next year.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've seen flashes from both Diggins and Braylon Bridges. I think Braylon Bridges is actually a very good big guy, especially when you think of specifically in the context of the Horizon League.
Right.
But you're taking away most of their backcourt. I mean,
Jamie
Hale is more of a kind of a shooter guy. He kind of reminds me more of that Mark Price kind of guy. And wow, this is the second week in a row I've made a Mark Price reference too, by the way. You could tell I'm originally from the Cleveland area if I'm making multiple Mark Price references.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the type of game that Jamie Hale kind of strikes me as, not necessarily kind of the running of the point kind of guy, which UIC is supposed to has right now. I mean, their backcourt's going to be gutted next year.
Gutted.
Yeah, gutted because they're 3 of their guys are gone.
And UIC is a difficult job. I think they've got a big market there in Chicago, but the actual UIC fan base is not always the most supportive, and it's hard to convince a lot of those local talent to stay at UIC. But I do think there is an expectation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course there is. And yeah, and again for a UIC team to go in to finish last week and blow out Northern Kentucky, who is arguably the second best team in the conference.
But
and actually, you can't even say arguably now. They are the second best team in the conference, and it's
for sure. But could you turn that same point around and say Steve McLean has all this talent? Look at how good these guys are. They can beat Northern Kentucky by 30 in their house.
And yet they turn around the next week and wow, they're barely beating IUPUI.
I kind of think I'm almost looking at that as the upside, and that's what he's always had in front of him, and it's just not quite clicking.
And that's kind of my thought about that too. Is like they have all this talent, and I've said this so many times that they have the UIC. I've always argued has had with Marcus Adi and Tarkus Ferguson has had the best backcourt in this conference, and they can't seem to get over the hump. They've been for the last 2 years they've been just hovering. The last couple of years they've been just hovering around 500, around 500.
Yeah,
and it's not that they're not terrible. It's not like they fell off the planet, but they're just not able to get over the hump. And while we're on the subject, let's talk about IUPUI as well, because if you look at IUPUI's makeup, you have just as a dynamic group of guys too. In Marcus Burke, in Jalen Manette, Elijah Goss is running away with the rebounding crown. I mean, he's the only guy who's grabbing double-digit rebounds every game, and they're in last place in the conference. And I guess my question, does it have it? I mean, and I want to chalk that up to the whole Jason Gardner situation, because you got a guy like Byron who basically got thrown into the situation,
right? And
you now have to really start to wonder what these guys would have done if Jason Gardner had not been a dumbass.
For sure.
Had Jason Gardner called an Uber that night, what would have happened?
Where's UPY right now? Yeah.
Yeah. Where
No,
are
I
they
mean,
now?
Jalen Minette is one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marcus Burke is amazing. He's done such a great job for them, but it just doesn't it hasn't clicked. And they've saw we've seen flashes of it, but they just haven't been able to get they've just been terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any of their defensive stats at note, but I feel like they give up at least 80 a game.
Yeah.
It can get pretty brutal.
Well, and here's the other thing too, and this is good. So then it comes down to who's the next coach and can they get anybody to stay, because most of those guys, in fact, almost all of those guys, Burke,
Right.
Minette, Grant Weatherford, Goss, all those guys are redshirt juniors.
Yeah.
All those guys could grad transfer
Yeah.
on them, and then
Yeah.
all you're left with is Mike DePersia.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the challenge.
I could absolutely see a Minette moving elsewhere.
And it's I mean, so that's kind of the daunting. So now IUPUI is now under pressure to find that guy who can who could actually convince all these guys to stay. And I don't think there's anybody out there who could do that. I'll be honest with you. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure IUPUI fan would disagree, but I don't know, man. I do not know. So
Tricky situation.
that's true. Beyond that, beyond those two teams, the big news this week, I thought, was the Youngstown State upset of Wright State.
I would say that would be A on the bullet points for me on biggest events of the week.
Absolutely. I think with I think Youngstown State had the shot. I knew they would, because they were playing in Beagley, man.
Oh, it's
when they play at Beagley, they always have a shot. That's why I call it the house.
It's amazing.
Actually, I was listening. I was watching. I wasn't really paying attention to the game. I think their play-by-play guy might have actually referred to it as the House of Heart Attacks yesterday.
Right, because they had that stretch where they went to overtime 3 times in a row.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
They did. Yeah, but
as I said before, Horizon Boy, fan of none, fan of all. But boy, do I got a soft spot for Darius Quisenberry.
Well, yeah.
He is awesome. He is so fun to watch, and he's just got a motor. Every loose ball, the ball be
Darius Quisenberry
coming in from three quarters down the court. And
Wright State single-handedly destroyed Wright State on Thursday.
Oh,
was it? He got, 41 points? He killed them.
Yeah. I mean, and the threes, the highlight tape, and I actually wasn't watching the game live, but I saw the replays, and he was taking those threes from everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure there were Wright State fans that were quite upset at.
How are you gonna be mad at that? I mean,
it was impossible to defend. That was Darius Quisenberry said, "I'm going off for 41 tonight, and nobody could stop him."
Yeah, how could you? Yeah, I mean, how could you deny that? Honestly. It's not their fault. But yeah, so yeah, Youngstown State. I mean, and it's funny because that was the game. That was actually the one game at Beagley didn't come down to a last minute shot.
Right.
It's funny because there were 2 other games in the Horizon League there where a last minute going into overtime situation didn't happen. One of them was IUPUI, one of them was Cleveland State, and surprisingly, that other one was Wright State. And it's just and it wasn't even close. I mean, they won by 18, and the final score did not reflect the game as a whole. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, they dominated. But
yeah.
But the thing is, they're so good at home, the Penguins. But even if you look at their losses at Beagley, if they had shot the free throw line half decently, wouldn't even gotten to that point. So it's this weird. They're really good at home. But for some reason, they get cold feet, I guess you could say, at the free throw line.
I mean, it happens. So with Youngstown State, and this is important. I think you're talking about year 3 of Jared Calhoun right now, and
Right.
you're talking about they have the opportunity. And this goes back to that third place. How important how important third place is going to be. Now they get to go into Wisconsin, and
Yep.
if they go in, beat Milwaukee, beat Green Bay. They absolutely have to beat Green Bay no matter what next week. If they go in and sweep Wisconsin, which for Youngstown State, not a great road team,
Yeah.
daunting task, doable, but a daunting task. If they do that, then Youngstown State finishes in third place in this conference. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't understate how the significance of that with Youngstown State, who has been in this conference since 2001. This year is marking the third year, I think, third season where they're going to finish up 500. That is significant. And I also want and looking at their roster this year, because I think they are only losing Donnell Cathcart and Devin Morgan to graduation. Right. Everybody else is supposed to be staying, which includes Quisenberry, which includes Naz Bohannon, which includes Jelani Simmons, who gives, as a Cleveland State fan, guy gives me headaches every day because he killed us.
Yeah.
With a Jameer Thomas, who's a really serviceable, he's banged pretty well in the paint. With a Michael Akuchie, Michael Akuchie. I would posit the theory. I believe that Youngstown State, with and factoring in what they have coming, who they have coming back, and who everybody in the Horizon League is losing after this year. If you look at all of these rosters, I think Youngstown State should probably be. I would argue that they're probably the favorite to win the conference next year.
Yeah, yes.
Based upon the strength of their roster, based upon a guy like Darius Quisenberry, who and a Naz Bohannon,
Naz Bohannon, right? He's huge to come back. He's a guy who's going to he's going to be a double machine next year.
Yes. The
president. Yes, I'm just so amazed.
Pride of my yes. And I'm not biased by the fact that Naz Bohannon is the pride of my hometown, Lorain, Ohio.
Oh, there you go. How about
Even though but yeah, he is. If you look at just those two kind of cornerstones for Youngstown State, I would but again, looking at what they bring back and what everybody else is losing. Because let's be honest, Wright State is losing a lot this year. Going to lose a lot after this year. They're losing. They're going to lose Full Gentry. They're going to lose Billy Wampler. Right. Loudon Love is technically a junior. He might come back next year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big question of the Horizon off season.
Yeah, whether will he or won't he? Will Loudon Love come back? That's a good question.
And I really, I don't know. He can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever
he wants, but it'll be interesting to see if he grabs that Big Ten offer.
I don't know. It just seems to me that and it's funny, and you look at, and I see Loudon Love situation, and then I also see a similar situation at Cleveland State with Al Eichelberger, who's had a monster season for Cleveland State. Cleveland State is probably not as surprising as everybody thinks they are without him.
Right.
I see kind of parallels in their situations where you got two guys who are highly productive big men on their respective teams, Loudon Love and Al Eichelberger. They have the ability to grad transfer, literally grad transfer somewhere, but the question becomes, will they or won't they? Right. And I think that will in those two situations, I think that will come down to whether both of those guys buy into their respective coaches, what they're selling. And and fortunately for both of those schools, they got two hell of a salesmen in Scott Nagy and Dennis Gates.
Yeah, for sure. But there are some other salesmen out there, I'm sure,
That
that will
is true. That is
try
true.
their hardest.
That is true. And I it just, for me at least, I think in terms of Wright State, in terms of Loudon Love, I think he absolutely, to me, I think his game is best suited for the Horizon League. If he does if Loudon Love grad transfers, I would see him. The only place I could envision him is a would be like a higher level Missouri Valley team.
Okay.
I that's where I would envision him to go. So for example, and Al Eichelberger, I think, would probably, because he's from Michigan. I could easily see. I don't want to see him at a MAC school, but I could see him at Eastern Michigan. I don't know if he'd want to go to Eastern Michigan because I don't know anybody who wants to go to Eastern Michigan. But I could see it. I mean, I would rather not have that happen.
Right.
But yeah, and I think, and I really do think that you 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 look at both of their collective situations, and I think that would be kind of their what direction they would go. So but again, if you're Al Eichelberger, you're thinking, okay, well, is this a better situation than, say, Cleveland State? And I don't know if that's true. And if I'm Loudon Love, yeah, I'm losing. Yes, I'm losing Cole Gentry. I'm losing Billy Wampler. I'm losing Jordan Nash, but at the same time, I'm still I'm still gonna have a Tanner Holden, who's easily an all freshman candidate. I still have a Jalen Hall, who's doing outstanding. I still have some younger guys like Trey Calvin and Andre Harris. They really, regardless of where you're. I have Grant Basili, who either is going to back me up or play side by side with me. That's huge.
That's
It's
huge. And
it,
they've
got
got a fan
James
base, and
Banks too.
he's got people supporting him
Yeah,
in Fairborn. But
that is true. That is true. Yeah, and if I'm honestly, if I'm looking at Loudon Love, because he's from Geneva, Illinois.
right.
So if I'm Loudon Love, I mean, theoretically, if he want, if he is, I would think if he's he's gonna move somewhere within, probably in closer proximity to
Right.
to
So, like,
home.
I say, it's Geneva, Illinois. Take this for a hypothetical. Kofi
Yeah.
Coburn, Illinois' big man, goes to the draft after the end of this year. They need one guy to fill in there. Could he be a guy that could even go to U of I? I think he would be able to hold up and shove elbows in the Big Ten.
That would be a possibility. That would be a probability. Illinois is a possibility for him, I think, if that indeed is the case. Because you're absolutely right. Now, mind you, of course, but like I said, and if that's the case, you could also make the argument for Northwestern as well, theoretically, because
Yeah.
but maybe not so much.
I don't know I don't know.
If
Yeah.
you're if I'm thinking if I believe that he is thinking maybe more of a higher level mid-major, maybe Loyola Chicago, possibly.
Well, they're still gonna have Cam Krutwig's gonna be back next year.
So that might be. Yeah, that would be
right, like an
well,
Illinois
that would
State.
be a hell of a sales job
State,
too. You could sit there and play right next to Cam Krutwig.
Yeah,
It would be like some, that would be quite a thing. But I don't know. But as in terms of this year, obviously, the loss to Youngstown State hurts, but it's not going to really hurt all that much for them. I mean, in terms of seeding, I mean, we're basically, when we're talking about Wright State, they're going to be where they're going to be. That's basically where we're at here. But because they lost, the battle for the 1 seed becomes very a hell of a lot more interesting next week with the last game of the season for them between Wright State and Northern Kentucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
well, since I have you here, Bryson Boy, what are you thinking for that game there? In terms of how do you think that one's going to shake out?
I think Northern Kentucky's going to clap back because they got smoked at the Nutter Center.
That's true.
That one wasn't even close. Now, do you know if I haven't looked if that game's going to be nationally televised?
It's not. I think that one. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think ESPN had made. I guess they had made the conscious decision to make sure that to make sure those games were the Wright State and Northern Kentucky games were absolutely on TV. They made this effort to make sure that both of those games were on there, without a doubt. And I can't say that I blame them. I mean, even with the changes that Northern Kentucky has had, with the graduation of Drew McDonald, with the transfer of Chris Vogt, with John Brannon leaving for Cincinnati and Darren Horton coming in, it's crazy because the more things change, the more things stay the same. You still have a Wright State, Northern Kentucky 1-2.
Absolutely. No, Northern Kentucky's established themselves as a regular top-tier player in the Horizon there.
Absolutely. I mean, and you can't deny it.
You cannot deny it. Absolutely. No, but I mean, I'm thinking that's gonna be senior night for some loved Northern Kentucky players. I think they're gonna be hot for that one.
Yeah. Now with Northern, I guess the real challenge for Northern Kentucky is going to be next year, because next year you're going to be without Tyler Sharp, you're going to be without Dantes Walton, because both of them are going to graduate. I believe you will still have Trevon Faulkner. You will still have Bryson Langdon. So that's going to be I think for Northern Kentucky, I think next year is going to be a challenge. But I mean, can you really count them out next year either? And I don't know if you can.
No, I mean Jalen Tate too coming back.
Yes, Jalen Tate is coming back. I think he's a redshirt junior. He might also have the North fan, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I believe he might also have the opportunity to grad transfer Jalen Tate. I can't remember 100%, but yeah, that might be a challenge for them as well.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at and absolutely, they're going to be that Wright State Northern Kentucky game is going to be on ESPNU, of course.
Yep.
That's going to be the key matchup. That I think is undoubtedly going to be for the 1 seed.
But I think the Youngstown at Green Bay game is going to be so much fun next week.
Oh, it so is, absolutely. And again, and that is coming up. That will be, and that's right on that's a Thursday game too. So you're absolutely going to have, it's that one. That's basically going to be the season that's going to basically be kind of finalizing the seeding right there between Youngstown State and Green Bay right there. I think that right there is going to be that's going to be the biggest deal for both those teams.
But I'll tell you,
I say that by the way, as Green Bay is gearing up to play Oakland. We record on Sundays, and of course we're not. We're recording this before Green Bay plays Oakland, so we don't know how that's going to shake out. But yeah,
I didn't know how it's going to shake out.
I don't know, but I don't know about Oakland either, man. Because since Rashad Williams came on, they got real good real quick.
They've been a disappointment, and that's been the head scratcher for Horizon Boy this year.
Yeah.
Because I love XHM.
Yeah.
But they've just had so much turnover in the backcourt, but they've got the talent, and it just feels like it's clicking in the past couple games, whereas otherwise they look so lost out there.
And I think,
I'm sure Matt shares his.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure, there's you hear that.
I think Oakland has gotten infinitely better in the last few near the end of the season, and it's not a coincidence that they've gotten better at the end of the season with Rashad Williams in that lineup.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a coincidence.
No, so I took them and sending 3 points to Milwaukee today.
Uh-huh. Oh,
I
really?
think they
Okay.
take care of business.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee's Milwaukee's such a weird animal. I can't put again. Also, a team that's got the talent in the Tijon Lucas. I mean, and they've just been kind of hovering around 500 the whole season.
Yeah,
And they're
they're
not
one of those
terrible. They're
teams.
not great though.
Right. I mean, if you told me, who I think is more likely to go on a run in the Horizon League tournament, I would take a Green Bay or a Youngstown over a Milwaukee. I think they're a decent team, but I don't know if they have that explosion rate that some of those other teams have.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I can't really. Yeah, and it's weird because and that's kind of been Milwaukee's MO all season.
Yes,
They've
they've
been
been.
just that under the radar mediocre team.
Yes, I would say. Yeah, I would say Milwaukee is the team that I am not sure if they're good or not.
Nobody
Milwaukee,
is.
Milwaukee and Oakland, I feel the least confident in telling you how good I think they are.
And they're playing each other today.
Right.
So I'm sure that made your prognostications.
Yes.
Yeah. So you must have been like, oh man, these two teams playing together. What the hell am I supposed to do with that?
Well, let's see. Last week when Oakland played Youngstown,
Yeah.
I took Youngstown in that one, and as soon as I saw Oakland wearing those beautiful gold uniforms, I was like, shoot, I made the wrong pick. There's no way they lost in those outfits.
Conversely, when I saw Cleveland State wearing the black jerseys against Detroit Mercy, I'm like, I have never been a fan. I have hated the black jerseys on Cleveland State. I know they look awesome, but they're cursed, man.
Well, are you talking about when they won at Detroit Mercy?
Yeah, but in the last decade,
Okay.
those black jerseys have been cursed to hell.
See, this is the kind of insider information that Horizon Boy needs.
Black
jerseys cursed. That's some insider information.
Apparently, I've clearly not been. I have not expressed enough of my disdain for Cleveland State's black jerseys. I know they look great, guys, but dude, they're like I don't know what satanic thing is going on between when the manufacturer produces them and they get to the Wolstein Center. But dude, something is wrong with those things. Stop wearing them, for the love of God. Please stop. For my sanity, stop wearing them. They look great. Don't get me wrong, but they're cursed.
So what are you thinking on your outlook? I mean, we talked about Eichelberger before, but what are you thinking about Cleveland State going into next year?
I think Cleveland State is I do think that they definitely bounce back. I think they're still probably maybe a year away.
Yeah.
But I think they're definitely above 500 next year.
I think they've been a fun. I mean, we've had a couple fun surprises in the Horizon League this year.
I think Cleveland. I think with the way that things have gone this year, with a team that was basically thrown together in August, that you're able to get 6 wins out of this team, and the season's not over either. But yeah, after his press conference, Dennis Gates is like, "The season's not over, man." Because they still got to go up to Wisconsin too, and I still do believe they have the ability to pull out at least a win or two out of Wisconsin. I think that Milwaukee game's a winnable game on Thursday for them. I really do.
Their fight hard meter is quite high. They always come out. I love Trey Gomillion. He like Quisenberry. Like he's just got a motor to him.
Gomilli's fearless. I mean, love that guy. And you got to remember also too, they're doing this shorthanded too.
Yeah.
Because Craig Beaudoin is out for the season. I believe, as I understand it correctly, I think he had surgery on his knee. He had arthro on his knee. So he's out for the rest of the season. Franklin Penn Jr., one of their other defensive guys, high ankle sprain. I'm not sure if I'm going to see him the rest of the season. I mean, they're doing this shorthanded with the team they put together in August. My only concern now is is the timetable in which Leonard Hamilton's going to retire from Florida State.
Yeah.
That's my only concern at this point, because the second he retires, you got to believe that Dennis Gates is a front runner for that job.
Yeah, no, that's kind of your dilemma. I was like, okay, how good do I want him to do here in this? Yeah, but
No,
obviously you want
he's
to.
the fact that the fact that Gates is coming, and I think what I guess the kind of the thought process is, if Dennis Gates is able to put together at least at least 7 wins in this conference, you're making the argument for him as coach of the year. I don't know if he gets there this year, but next year,
Well,
um, I think
right.
it's he's gonna
I
he's
don't think
already
they're
got
going
the
for coach of the year,
ceilings
but it's
this year.
undoubtedly he's done an amazing job.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There are some quality candidates,
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
know you guys are planning on talking about that a little bit next week, so I don't want to
We
get
are.
too much into that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know Jimmy and I are going to definitely talk about that next week. But yeah, I think yeah, you look at the kind of the candidates for this. Scott Nagy's obviously in the conversation. You definitely have Darren Horn, absolutely.
I
Jared
think
Calhoun,
Calhoun,
of course.
Calhoun has just done such a good
Yeah,
job with the team, getting
absolutely.
getting his guys and putting a puzzle piece together.
Why the hell do you think I wanted him at Cleveland State, man?
Yeah, yeah,
For this very reason.
yeah,
And we got Dennis Felton instead.
yeah.
Well, I've already had the conversation. Yeah, we've already talked about Dennis Felton. Yeah, but so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. Horizon Boy, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Again, Horizon Boy, you can find on Twitter at HorizonBoy_HB.
Well, Bob, thank you for having me on. I think this is the first exclusive interview with Horizon Boy, this mysterious character. So hopefully people can.
And we have not broken the mojo.
Boy, yeah, and I was a little bit. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this because Horizon Boy is always in the third person on Twitter, but you're talking to the real. This is me, Horizon Boy.
There you go.
So thank you very much for having me on. Love the roundtable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable at horizonroundtable.com. You can find episodes, all episodes, including last week's bonus episode about Dennis Felton's lawsuit. Wherever you can find wherever podcasts are available, you can pull them up on your Apple. Why do I keep saying Apple? Every freaking episode I say Apple. They don't do app, but Amazon and Google devices, you can absolutely do that. So you definitely want to catch next week with Jimmy. But until then, thank you for listening.